These are the stories of Careblazers, the stories of husbands, wives, sons, and daughters whose world is forever changed since caring for their loved one with dementia. You'll hear stories of heartbreak, you'll hear stories of love. These stories are real, raw, and powerful. I hope these stories show you you're not alone, and I hope they give you some inspiration and help as you go through your caregiving journey.
Sonia, thank you so much for being willing to come on and share your story with other Careblazers. Can you take some time to tell us who you cared for?
I actually care for my mother. She's 86 years old. Before me, my son was a full-time caregiver for her, but we can talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, well, okay, we'll just jump into that. I'll put a picture up on the screen of you and your mom and your son, Philip. And Philip was somebody who cared for your mom with dementia.
Correct. Yep. He was the one that was there when mom was first diagnosed. She was acting a little bit different. He moved down. We found out my dad was not going to live very long, so he moved from being with me down to take care of my dad. 3 months later, mom had to have major surgery, and he actually was here 10 years with her until he was tragically killed in a car accident in 2019.
Wow. Yeah, it's first of all, your son is a Careblazer,
He
right?
was.
He absolutely. Yeah, he is a Careblazer. I'm sorry to hear what happened to him. What has stood out to me in some of the talks that I've done with Careblazers up to now is that so many of you have been through lots of tragedy, losing children, other family members, on top of caring for a loved one with dementia. It's a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Sonia, can you talk a little about how did the diagnosis come about?
Well, Philip was noticing that mom was being more forgetful. She was getting a little bit more agitated with things. Simple tasks that she would do with no thought were becoming major things. We have her medication set out and we call them pods 1, 2, 3, 4 because she takes pills 4 times a day and they're done by the week, each days of the week, and then we do so many at a time. And she would forget to take her medication, or she would fight about the medication that she was taking all the time, to the point where we actually have photographs of every pill in every one of her pods so that she can match them, so that she doesn't think she's taking the wrong thing, that shows that she still has some of that recognition. But when in this instance, she actually had a bladder infection, which was part of the issue. She just was very, very aggressive. So we took her to the doctor. My son took her to the doctor and they said, well, we think she might have had a stroke. So they sent her to the ER so that they could get her an emergency CT. And that's when they found that she had had a stroke at some point in time and suggested that we really needed to go to a neurologist. So getting that neurology appointment, they don't have one open tomorrow, so we had to wait a few weeks for that. And when that appointment came, I actually live 3 hours away from my mother. So I traveled down and took a day from work, or a couple of days from work, and met with the doctor. And of course, they took mom away and did a battery of tests. And then they had some conversations with me. And even at that point, which was back in 2016, they were saying she really shouldn't be alone, but she really is very independent. What we've also learned is she has some sundowners. So once 5 o'clock hits, other things come to trouble her, and things that, at 4 o'clock, and I know it's just crazy. It's just like a time clock. It almost is exactly at 5 o'clock. You could set your watch by it, and it's just, forget it.
Okay. So it sounds like your mom actually had formal testing, maybe by a neuropsychologist or something, who was officially able to give that diagnosis.
She did.
And then from that diagnosis, they were recommending she shouldn't be living alone. How did you navigate that? Because it sounds like independence was really important to her, and maybe you guys thought she was okay with some things set up.
Well, my son had come down when in 2009, December of 2009, we got a phone call that they thought my dad only had 3 months to live. And my son and my father were very close. So he moved immediately downstate and stayed with my dad. And he died almost 3 months to the day. And so he was already living here with my mother full time.
Okay.
So
that kind of naturally took care of itself.
And not very many 26-year-old men, grandchild, grandsons would do that, but he did that. He took care of my dad to the point where my dad would tell the nurses to get away because only my son could do it the right way. So he had that caring way. And I think he did that partly because my son and my mom and dad were like the four musketeers. We always traveled together. We did stuff together. Being a single parent, dad kind of stepped up and helped with Philip. And so losing him was a big thing, but it was just natural for him to come and stay here. And a lot of his friends were here. So he was taking care of her faithfully all that time through many, many, many things.
How did your mom handle when all of a sudden he was gone?
Oh, well, I think at first it was difficult because he was killed in a car accident. He fell asleep and hit a tree. And so because he died instantly, he had a tree that had like a triple root and his heart was severed. So my son literally died of a broken heart. They wouldn't let us see him. They had to do an autopsy. So he was just gone as if he was on a vacation for for 5 days. And then I kept telling her I really needed her to be strong for me. Because I think that otherwise mother has had an issue with depression in the past and has had nervous breakdowns before I was born. So she's always had issues with depression and things like that. So I told her I needed her to be strong for me this time. And she was very, very strong at the funeral. And she was very strong for me for several days. And we were actually doing okay. I was able to get some caregivers in to help out. I was working up north. Some of the other things before Philip had passed away was we were tag teaming it because he was starting to get caregiver stress and he got caregiver burnout. And so what I did was I bought an iPad. And so if Philip wanted to go out, I would be on the iPad with mom. I have her on the iPad in my office at work. Sometimes she wants to watch me sleep at night. So the iPad was on at night, and my sisters would help with that as well. But mostly I'm her person. I'm her go-to person.
It's amazing how the mother instincts kicked in when you really needed her. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And so that's how it kind of started. And then after he passed, we kind of continued with that. And it would be so strange. And I think one example I really wanted to share with the group was, a lot of people worry about the cameras and big brother in your business, but you know what, you need to be in your family's business. You need to be there for your family member, because during COVID, mom actually had an incarcerated hernia that she had to be taken away in an ambulance, and they would not let me come to the hospital, be with her. And she had her iPad, and I think that was a saving grace. She had to be there longer than she needed to because they found a blood clot in her leg, and then they had to delay surgery for several days. And sadly, she wasn't always treated as nicely as she could have been. And I did become the daughter, if you know what I mean, because I wasn't allowed them to not give good care to my mother. Yelling at her in the middle of the night when she's confused is not going to fly for me.
Right. You had to step up and advocate for your loved one, which I imagine would be really hard to do when you're not physically able to be there.
Right. And the sadder thing is that mom was at a different level of care before that surgery. When they gave her the surgery, it took her 3 hours to wake up. And that caused a really huge deficit in her cognitive impairment. And they never really have called her, they've never said Alzheimer. All they told me is that mom is cognitively impaired. They didn't label her as having Alzheimer's. They just kept saying cognitively impaired. And they've always been really amazed because when, they gave me the idea that there's a scale of 22 to 26, and 26 is where you need to be. And mom actually stayed at 24 for like 3 years in a row. And they were like amazed. And all I can tell you is because we kept her home, we kept her familiar, we kept her face seeing live people. And I think that that's a huge difference.
So even when she initially got referred to the neurologist and sounds like maybe a neuropsychologist and had that battery of testing, they never gave her the official, they didn't say it was dementia or Alzheimer's disease or anything like that. They just said cognitively
impaired. And that's what they've kind of stuck with. And now in the later time, since she had that surgery, they're talking more about dementia. But for a long time, all they called was cognitive impairment. Even when I had, we have in Michigan a My Choices program, which is actually designed to keep people in their home. We had them come out to evaluate mom, and they said she was still too functional to qualify for that program.
Yeah, it's kind of a tight spot because they're saying she's not okay to be alone, yet she's not bad enough to qualify for programs.
Exactly. And daytime, we can probably find people to come by. It's the nighttime that's the problem. And then when you also try to find nighttime caregivers, with patients with dementia, mom has bouts where she might not want to sleep for a couple days. And then you still got to work. I've been here working from home, and it's pretty hard to stay awake in a meeting when mom's kept you up till 5, 6 in the morning, right?
Right.
And then sometimes she won't go to sleep. I mean, right now I have her in the room on the iPad with my sister talking. We put the dog outside, because
so she can hear us? Is she joining in?
Actually, she probably is listening at that door. She has that selective hearing going, and she also,
hello, Mama.
I don't know. She also plays possum really well too. She'll fake like she's asleep. Yeah, she does do that.
I'm curious, when you got that diagnosis, or at any point during the journey, did any of the providers that you went to, did they give you references, referrals in terms of support for the family?
They just gave me the email address to the Alzheimer's Association. And it took a long time for me to I actually called the social worker back and I said, so she has Alzheimer's, and then they explained that Alzheimer's is just a form of dementia. It's not all dementia, because most people everyone wants to say their family member has dementia or Alzheimer's, but many of your videos clearly say there's Lewy Body rather. There's different forms. There's frontal lobe. There's a whole different form, and so one thing doesn't necessarily match up. And I think that's why I don't know how I ran across your video, other than I was probably searching for help for dealing with not only the loss of my son, but the loss of my mother, because it's truly what it is. It's a loss. Every day I see a little bit less. Even though she's here, I see a little bit less. Yeah. And that's the thing that's kind of difficult, is how to deal with that long time grief, right?
How are you dealing with it? How do you deal with it?
I have good days and bad days. I mean, I think of some of the caregiving question and answer sessions I've been on with you, and I know one of our Careblazers on there said something about thanking their mother for this journey and this opportunity. And I said, I'm thankful on some days, but other days I really don't know I have any hair left in my head. Mom can be so funny and so quick-witted, and then other times she can just be downright mean. Downright mean, and not even realize that she said those things. When she tends to every now and again get bladder infections. And when she gets those bladder infections, she actually gets very aggressive, to where she's like dug her nails in my arm, called my other sister and said that I was an imposter. But the crazy thing about that, and I think you'll find this interesting, Dr. Natalie, is she called my sister Vicky from Oklahoma and said, there's an imposter in the house. I came out, turned on my iPad, and she goes, Sonia, somebody's in the house that I don't know who, and I'm out here in the living room. She knew me on the iPad, but she didn't know me in person.
Isn't that fascinating?
It is. And I've shared that with her neurologist, and they just said, it's like, there's got to be something said about that.
So how did you handle it in the moment? Like, you're there, she thinks you're an imposter. What did you do?
I talked to her on the iPad, and I said, Mom, I'm out in the living room. I'm going to come in right now and take care of you. And then once I did that, then she was okay. But it was just amazing. Very funny that she really thought I was someone that I wasn't. But I mean, she's strong. She seems like she's frail, but she's stronger than an ox sometimes. Like has the kung fu grip, and I'm not kidding. If she's got a hold of something,
Yeah. So the way that it is right now, she lives around 3 hours away, and you're pretty much doing the iPad thing with her, and it's been going well so far.
Right. Well, right now, currently, because of COVID, I've had arrangements. I work as a professor at a university, and they have made arrangements for me to work from home. And so I've been working from home for these last few semesters, but I also still have another caregiver come in during the day to help mom with bathing, to help with mom's laundry, to help with house care skills, because I have osteoarthritis in both of my knees. So it's hard for me to ambulate on my own. It's still very difficult to work from home because, and then we've had this conversation in our question and answers, is mom wants to try to help me do work. And it's like, I teach ultrasound. Do you know how to read ultrasound pictures? No. Well, can you read ultrasound impressions? No. And then you really can't help. I did try to find some type of a work thing for her to do, because you suggested, how about you find her own little work thing to do? She's more interested in mine, unfortunately.
She wants to be near you.
Exactly right. Exactly.
So is it basically right now you're just constantly trying to like find time to yourself, or have you have you found something that has helped?
Your courses definitely help. The videos help. I do have times that I'll call my sisters and I'll say, you know what, I've got to take a break. She doesn't like me to leave the house, which is a problem, because she feels like I'm abandoning her, and I'm not. She has lately said a lot of times, like, we've had a time where we weren't together. And it's like, no, Mom, because before she had dementia, I lived 3 hours away. We still came every other weekend.
Oh yeah.
You know,
you guys are close. Yeah.
We've always
What
been
have you,
close.
when you leave the house, like I imagine there has to be times when you have to leave your home. Do you like take the iPad with you,
or I have one of my sisters get on with her?
Yes.
Or I make sure that the other caregiver is here.
Okay.
It's just been difficult. Now, one thing, I didn't know the wonderful Alexa devices, and I use these a lot more. My friend from college, believe it or not, bought me a little Echo Dot, and I thought it was neat because sometimes Mom would forget how to work her phone, and she could say, call, even though we have a life alert, sometimes she'll forget that, or sometimes she hits it for nothing, right? Right. So I thought that was neat. Well, then they had this Echo Show 8, and now I actually have one in the kitchen, in the dining room where she sometimes takes medicine, in the living room where the nighttime caregivers are at, so I can make sure they're not sleeping on the job, and then in Mom's bedroom where we can look at her on top of her dresser. We have a speaker in the bathroom. We didn't think we needed a camera in the bathroom, but I actually, from my phone, can drop into any room and follow Mom throughout the house.
Wow.
If I have to go away. My sisters have the opportunity to do that as well, but unfortunately, unless I give them my Amazon address, they can't drop into each individual room. It'll drop into whatever room she was nearest at, but they can still make contact with her. And those devices are available unless the power goes out. You know,
so you've really found a way to make technology, use it to your advantage.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know people say, well, I don't like Big Brother watching or listening, but it's like, but you know, you also don't want anything bad to happen to your mother. And sometimes she'll remember how to work with the microwave, and sometimes she won't. And so she'll actually ask us several times, can you help me do this? Can you help me do that? I actually even installed a little washer and dryer in a bedroom that used to be an office of hers, so that she could actually, if she had an accident at night, she could put her clothing in the washer to keep some of that autonomy there for her. That has been probably in the last 3.5 months, that's kind of gone away, because she just is getting more forgetful, and every day it seems more challenging for her to forget. And you know, I know we've talked about things we might talk about in the interview, and I think the thing that stuck out with there is, what is the biggest caregiver challenge you have? And I would have to say it's the unpredictability. Every day is unpredictable. One day Mom will seem like Mom I've known my whole life, and the next day Mom is someone I don't even know. Sometimes she'll call me mother when I'm not her mother. Sometimes she'll ask about people that have been gone for years, that she thinks she missed saying goodbye to them. And she also goes into this fear of death. And we're very religious people, and she believes in God and has faith in God. But unfortunately, with this disease process, it makes her more fearful of death. And like, she's alone. I said, but you're not alone. I'm here. There's always somebody here, not only physically, but spiritually. God is always here.
Yeah.
And it's hard to, you know, I do the change the subject things. I love the memory lane cards that I got. I bought those.
You got some.
I did. I bought them right away, and we went through them. And I actually, for Mother's Day, just bought a book that was called Mother Dollar Recollections book, and it just came a few minutes before our interview started, because I thought, I'm not only going to write down her stuff, I'm going to write down my stories with her as a caregiver, because I don't think, you know, I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and of course, girls. What my mom always says, that a girl was a daughter your whole life. Your son till he takes on a wife. And I love my brothers and I love my sister-in-laws, but it's so very true. My sisters call every day, every day. My brothers call when they can, and I know they have other life things happening, but it is so very true. Mom, and at this point in time, I don't know that mom misses that they don't call every day, but when they call, she always asks why they aren't visiting. She remembers that.
You know, it's possible you could work with your sisters too. Some of those questions in memory lane and just the approach that you would use can be done over the phone or over the iPad or something if they're having a conversation. But I don't want to distract from your story here. So when your mom starts to have that anxiety and fear of dying, what do you do? How do you
I usually
handle?
tell her, that she shouldn't be afraid, that because my dad is in heaven and my son is in heaven, and her brother, unfortunately, he died from COVID and complications. My uncle, they're all in heaven. Her mother's in heaven. Everybody's in a happy place where they remember things and they don't have any problems. And I'm here too. And then I try to think of ways to change the subject, because truly you have to divert with her. Otherwise, she'll just go on and on and on. She actually, how she has is a cognitive impairment, but yet is a badger memory. They say if a badger bites hold of something, they doesn't want to let it go. And that's truly how it is with her. This house was built by my grandfather, and so it was built back in the 50s, and so there's not a lot of closets because people didn't have a lot of clothes. They didn't do a lot of storage. They had root cellars, and they had stuff that was downstairs. Well, who wants to walk up 20 steps and down 20 steps to get your canned goods, right?
Right.
So I bought these nice utility carts, and we stuck them back by the back door, and they roll very easily. And she went on one day how the fire marshal was going to come in because those are by the door. And every time I come back to the kitchen, they're shoved out in the kitchen floor where we can't get around, where she can't get to what she needs. It's like, please stop doing this. You're undoing work I'm doing. And she goes, well, the fire marshal. It's like, so I tell my sister Vicky, I said, I just text 1-3. I just say, please call now. Please call now. I'm at my Popeye moment. That's all I can stand. I can't stand no more. I'm at my Popeye moment. And unfortunately, it's the hardest thing, because you start to lose your temper and you start to raise your voice. And my voice is the kind, when I talk softly, I'm good, but I'll show you the difference. When I talk loud, I sound angry, but I'm not really angry. It's just I'm talking louder. So then she thinks I'm angry, and it's like, I'm not angry, Mom. I'm frustrated. I miss you. I miss my mom. I miss my mom that could do those little things. I miss my mom that made leisure suits for my dad back in the day, that made bathing suits for us, that made her own bra, that the genius mother. I miss that she can't even know the milk's in the fridge. I miss her.
Yeah. Do you think she has an awareness of her decline?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And some days are worse. Some days she truly is there, other days not. And it's so funny because she goes to these spurts where she doesn't sleep for a couple days, and then she won't want to wake up. And it's like, do I wake her up and give her the medicine? But I know she needs because doctor said she needs 8 hours of sleep, minimum 8 hours of sleep. And so I actually started saying, because she doesn't always want to respond to me anymore, even though I'm her person. And even though if my other sister says something, she'll ask me. If I tell her, sometimes she'll be resistant to it. And I don't know if it's because sometimes she looks at me as her mother and maybe she had some issues there. I don't know. But I've started saying, well, Dr. So-and-so said you need to do this. And Dr. So-and-so said you need to do this. And even if she wants to get in an argument with taking your medication, then I say, well, Dr. So-and-so will be upset if you don't take your medication. And if you choose not to take it, then you have to pay the consequence. It's going to be on you.
And she responds well to that?
She usually does. Yeah. That's worked the best so far. But see, as a caregiver, there's the other thing. Back when, after the care choices people came to see my mom, she decided she'd go out and move some cans and slipped in the grass. And when we went to the emergency room after waiting 10 hours, she told them, and here's the thing, I had been here for 7 days and I had to go back up and teach a class, and I left, and she fell 10 minutes after I left, and I actually turned my car right back around and came back. But when we were in the emergency room, she said to them, I fell in the grass and Sonia just left. Now, how do you think they interpreted that?
Yeah, not very good.
In the grass, right? No, I didn't leave her laying in the grass. So suddenly we're in the emergency room. I've given all this time up with my son and myself, and we're taking care of her as best we can, all these things. And they're labeling me as I might have hurt my mother.
Oh, no. Did
Uh,
anybody talk to you, pull you aside, get some information, hear your story?
no, they didn't. They didn't. But the craziest thing is mom was seeing a psychiatrist, and they actually tapered off her visits now, but she was seeing a psychiatrist, and we just saw the psychiatrist 2 days before, and she even said at our next visit, I saw that notation there, and this actually was just literally a month and a half after my son was killed. So everything was still fresh and new, and trying to deal with things, trying to figure out how to help mother the best, you know. And from what I understand, I could try to write a letter to the administrator to see if they'd remove it. But the psychiatrist said when she opened it up, it really didn't say anything.
How did you know they were questioning your care? Just by what they were saying to you?
Well,
Or?
suddenly it went from one person coming in to a team of people came in to check mom's full body from head to toe to see if there was any other markings. And from what I understand, a friend of mine had told me that a month before that time, because I live 3 hours away, I didn't always hear all the local news. I guess a month before that time, there was a case in the area of Oakland County that a caregiver for her mother beat her mother to death. And when the police went to the house, there was blood splatter everywhere. And it was never suspected. So because of this incident, suddenly somebody who is doing everything to keep her mother safe is looked at. And I think that was the hardest thing. And I was very fortunate. I did have a really dear friend, Angelique Van Hooser. She helps. I'm sorry to say her last name, but she's a really dear friend and helps us out. And will come by whenever we need anything. Helped with my son's funeral. Drops anything to help. A real true Christian. Was there with me. She goes, I was ready to sock him. She goes, and I'm not a violent person, but it just was very upsetting for them to try to accuse me of something that didn't happen.
It's hard because in this disease, you could be the best Careblazer in the world and try to do everything you can, but chances of your loved one maybe falling or getting hurt are still pretty high. And it's also chances are high your loved one might say something to somebody that's not true, like my daughter leaves me, or I'm always alone, or she's stealing my money, or and so as a healthcare provider, we always have to take those things seriously. But I just can't imagine on the other end, especially if nobody sat down with you to talk to you, let you know what's going on and just kind of what's happening. It's like it's got to be the worst feeling.
The crazy thing is I work at a satellite of that same facility. I had been an employee for that facility for over 15 years, right? So mine, if you look my name up in their system, it would actually, they usually, if you're an employee, they call you VIP, but yet it didn't matter. They didn't ask, they didn't look, they didn't call they didn't call anybody to see what was up. And they I forget what they called it. It's almost like an abused child is code gray or something. And the code means that geriatric injury. Geriatric, suspicion for geriatric abuse.
So did it end pretty much there on that emergency room visit?
It did end there, because when the doctor came in, because when mother tried to catch herself, she bent her finger backwards. They thought maybe she had fractured her finger. So we had to go to her hand specialist, that she goes to get shots for her arthritis in her thumb. So when we were there, so when the doctor came in to wrap her hand at the emergency room, we told her that my son was a full-time caregiver. He just died a little over a month ago. And I think that was kind of why it ended there. Plus, all the bruises she had was from that fall that day.
Right.
Now,
you mentioned at times, I forget the exact example, but like your mom might sometimes believe things that aren't true, just in terms of, so how do you handle those situations? Like she tells you something and it's not true.
Well, not very well. Sometimes, I'll be honest with you. I've talked with you about Lara, our dog, on our question and answer sessions, and she's a therapy dog that my son had. He was bipolar, and the therapist said he needed somebody to worry about other than himself, and so she's become mom's therapy dog, and mom seems to want to share her dinner plate. And of course, Lara has put on weight, and the vet says she's put on weight. And I said, I know, I'm trying everything. We tried putting her in the cage. I tried putting her outside. And what I find happens is that mom will sneak by and still, obviously, because the dog's still gaining weight and I'm not doing it. And then mom will be upset because Lara's gained so much weight. I said, then don't give her your dinner food. I didn't. Yeah, you did. No, I did not. I do not feed this dog. Then within a minute, she's giving her noodles off her plate. It's like, Mom, I can't. Last night, I will tell you, she started doing that, and I called my sister. I said, you know what? I got to go in the back room. My son Philip, we had him cremated, and he's in his room where he lived. And I said, I'm going to the room with Philip, and you're gonna have to take care of Mom because. And so she video chats and talks with Mom, and she'll take overnights when I can't stay up anymore because I'm just truly exhausted. Same with my sister Angie. Laura's out on the porch parking.
I can hear Laura.
But then she'll do, and I guess this is one of the most bothersome things. Laura's a rescue dog, and we really support the rescue dogs. And she actually picked Philip when we went to the thing, but she was found wandering the streets in Mount Clemens. And so when anyone raises their voice or talks loud, Laura will kind of come to you or come away from it. So when Mom gets me upset and frustrated, I'll raise my voice and the dog moves. See there, Lara's moving because you're being it's like that just so infuriates me. It's like, Mother, you pushed me to my Popeye moment. And I really try that count to 10. I really try to smile. I really try not to do the worst thing is arguing with them, because like even if you don't have dementia, we all know there's no sense in having an irrational conversation you can't have a rational conversation with an irrational person. And it's the same thing. They can't go through that thought process. And I think that, my mother was a whiz at numbers. She was a spelling bee champion. She, she just was such a tremendous person. And to see that gone is hard.
Yeah. A lot of grief. Yeah. So, Sonia, what do you do for self-care? How do you care for yourself when so much of your time is caring for your mom?
Well, I teach, so I have to care for students, which is still not caring for myself. The Careblazers classes, I watch those videos. I go to the question and answer sessions. They mean everything to me, and I really do think that's a blessing that God sent to me. We bird watch. We put some bird feeders up. Philip put one up before he had passed away, and then I bought one for each of our windows, so we each have our own bird feeder windows. And we get deer, we have bucks, we have the other day we woke up and had a turkey on the porch, which if you knew where we live, that's pretty different. Up north I'd expect a turkey, down here not necessarily. Woodpeckers, Baltimore Oriole came today, and we really enjoy watching those birds. And I really believe that the God sends messengers with cardinals and butterflies to make us feel that way. And actually, there's a cardinal I named Philip, the Philip Cardinal, and he has a wife, and they had 2 boys and a girl. And at Christmas, they all came to visit, and I have pictures on our organ.
That's special.
It is, and I know people think it's different, but there's sometimes when I'm thinking hard on him, he's in my dreams, and he kind of talks to me, and I know some people think that's weird, but.
Well, I think everybody has their own journey, right? There's no right, wrong way to grieve. It's whatever is comfortable to you, whatever resonates with you, whatever feels good to you. And self-care, same thing, it's self-care. You're not caring based on what other people, how they think you should be doing it. It's what feels right for you. And I think nature can be incredibly healing. Looking for all the life in nature. And what Mother Nature brings to you can be really meaningful. It sounds like, I'm so glad to hear you have supportive sisters, even if they're not physically there, just you can call on them. They can be there. They can entertain your mom. They can talk to your mom if needed. That's beautiful. I'm really happy to hear about your work, allowing you to, maybe do more from home than otherwise.
And I've got, like I said, my college friend Cheryl, my friend Sue, my friend
Mhm.
Jean, my friend Teresa, my colleague Michelle. It's hard for them to understand the journey because they haven't necessarily dealt with it. Um, but I think that they are coming around to understand. And unless you're here 24/7, I always think about people saying, take that deep breath. And in some instances, that can be very comforting. But usually, when they say that to you, is when they see you having a not so pleasant moment, where you're so frustrated. And in that instance, it's like you don't have a clue. You have no clue what I've gone through to get to this very moment. And honestly, take a deep breath is just like my mother telling me you've upset the dog. It's like a dig for me. So don't tell me to take a deep breath. I've been holding my breath so long, you
So that's
have
good to know, just like what's not so helpful maybe for you to
right,
hear. What
right.
what has been some of the most helpful things friends or other support systems have said or done to kind of help you in this journey?
Give yourself a pass. Give yourself a break. You're human. Don't beat yourself up. You're doing great. Don't give up. Biggest of all, I love you and I'm praying for you.
So those are the helpful words for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking those would also be pretty helpful words to think for yourself,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But by the grace of God, I know I wouldn't have been able to go through the things I've gone through, losing my only child.
Yeah. Sonia, for other people who are watching this, other Careblazers who are dealing with all the challenges of caring for a loved one with dementia and whatever other life challenges and tragedies have come their way, what words do you have for them? What to help them? Something you maybe wish you would have known along the journey or
I really would encourage them. I've heard some say that the reason they don't want to call mom is it bothers them that she doesn't recognize them, or it hurts them that she doesn't know. And I think of a video that you posted not too long ago, is that it's not they don't remember you, it's just they remember you from a time in the past. And that's why I really encourage, when my son passed away and they said, what can we do? I said, just take one day a week, 5 minutes, to do a video call to mom before she doesn't recognize you. Just take that time. I know it makes you uncomfortable and it might take 5 minutes of your time, and she might not remember it 5 minutes later, but for those 5 minutes, she was in heaven, so to speak, on earth. Give them that memory. Give her that. Um, because someday she won't even know who I am.
Yeah. I can tell you love your mom very much.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
chose to do this. Mom will say, I'm so sorry, you're stuck with me. I said, Mom, it's not like that. I choose to be here with you.
Yeah.
I choose to
You
be here. I choose to help you. It's not always easy, but I made this choice.
Yeah. That's
No,
beautiful. You would never choose for somebody you love to get dementia, but once they do,
no,
you're choosing to be there. You're
that's
choosing to be
exactly right.
your yeah.
Be nice to have some more helpers, but
Yeah.
sometimes people say, well, you wouldn't like it anyways because it's not your way. It's like, no, it's not about my way. It's just about getting it done. It truly
Yeah.
is.
Absolutely. I can tell where Philip got all his heart and care that he would uproot where he lived to go care for his father and care for his grandfather and grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You mind putting up his
absolutely.
picture before?
Yes. So what I'm going to do for the video, the picture you sent me with
Hmm.
the three of you, it's going to be on the screen.
Oh, good.
So I want to just say thank you for what you do for caring for your mom. And I also want to say thank you to Philip for what he did in
Absolutely.
caring for your mom and for your dad. And just thank you so much for sharing your story. These are heartbreaking stories, but they also highlight just how human and how resilient and how hard this whole journey is. And just thank you for sharing it. I think through that, like, it's very clear how just because we feel weak, just because we feel broken, just because we feel like this is hard, none of that, it just shows your strength that you keep showing up, you know?
And I hope someday to be like Sandy and be grateful for the journey. But right now, I'm not quite there.
Yeah. And it's just loving yourself through the process, giving yourself grace through that process, and not comparing yourself to where somebody else is on their journey.
Yeah. And for all my friends that are out there that are looking forward to us talking, because they all said, that's so wonderful. Thank you for loving Mom and I and praying for us. It's so appreciated and felt, because I don't think we could do it. And Laura Dog.
Love that Laura dog. Got to get her on a diet
Absolutely.
though. Got to figure that out. So no, seriously, thank you for being there for your mom. I know it's hard. I know it's a challenge. I know it's a challenge juggling. I mean, you've basically uprooted your life too from where you've lived, at least part of the time. And it's hard stuff. And it sounds like you have people who, even if they don't fully understand what you're going through, they at least know. I know a lot of Careblazers haven't even shared a lot of what they're going through. Did you ever go through that? Like sometimes I talk to Careblazers who are embarrassed or ashamed that their loved one has dementia and they don't mention it to anybody or say anything.
Well, I'm not ashamed. I think sometimes I worry that she might feel embarrassed, because she's always often told me that crying embarrasses her. She used to get embarrassed by crying, and she will have crying spells. And I think that's hard for me. And, as a caregiver and a careblazer, my natural instinct is to make it better. I can't fix this. I was always more like the fixer in the family, make it better. And this is something I can't fix. I can't
Right.
fix it. I can't make it change. We had other things, when Mom started on the medicine they wanted to do on the patch because that was most effective. She's allergic to the patch. She got blotches everywhere. So we have to we call them brain capsules. So we go, here's your brain pill, here's your stomach pill, you know. But I was never ashamed of her. But I do worry because she does have times where she knows, she seems very clairvoyant. And then she says, how long have I been gone this time? And I said, Mom, you've never been gone. You've never come out in the living room with your bra and underwear on top of your clothes. You've never acted out in that way. The only times I've ever had her really, really be aggressive and horrid is if she's had a bladder infection or she's sleep deprived. And then who isn't that? Who isn't that?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you again. Thank you for loving your mom, for being there for your mom, and for sharing it with all of the Careblazer family to see. I think a lot of people are going to resonate, and I hope to see you in a future Q&A once we get started back up.
Yeah, and thank you for what you do, Dr. Natalie. It means the world. I really do think you saved my life in a lot of ways. So with knowing it and seeing other people that you're not alone, you're experiencing those things. And, sometimes we can't always have, they don't always have the meetings that will fit with your time frame. If you work till 5 and they're meeting at 4, there's not a lot you can do, especially in an educational system. If class is at that time, that's when class is.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm happy to be a small part of your big journey, and just so happy to have you as part of my care course, part of the family. And we'll talk again.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Natalie.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sonia. Bye.